can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. Right now, I feel like $100,000.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
You looked at our group and said Denver has a Super Bowl winning defense. You saw it before the first game. 2-point conversion coming up. The drive from a couple out from the gun. Manning hits the pass to Fowler to make it 24-10.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today's episode is none other than Bennie Fowler. I'm going to introduce formally in a second, but before I do, Bennie, I always like to point out what other episodes people should check out on the podcast. One of my favorites is Pat Williams. If people don't know what Pat Williams is, he brought the Orlando Magic to Orlando. And what's interesting about him is he went door to door, Bennie, selling season tickets, pre-selling season tickets before they even brought the franchise to Orlando to prove that they should bring them. So he went door to door selling season ticket, pre-selling season tickets. They didn't have a team and went back and go, listen, I sold out. I don't remember if he sold it out, but he sold a lot of season tickets. He's like, I've already proven they want a team here. And he was famous for drafting Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley. Check him out. Check out that episode with Pat Williams. He's an amazing individual. I also like to tell stories that are, Bennie's book is Silver Spoon, which I'll mention in a second, but I like to tell stories too, Bennie, that are the challenges, not just like the high points. And so some of these people we've heard of, like the founder of P90X, Tony Horton, we know what he's done with P90X, but what people sometimes don't know is he drove cross country and he made his food and rent money by putting his hat out on the street and being a street mime. Like that's how he actually paid for his food and rent. So these just stories of people, just grinding and making it happen whatever way possible. I love hearing. And so check out that and many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships. We do that by helping you run your podcast. And for me, Bennie, I know from observing you and studying some of the stuff that you've put out, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at a way to give to my relationships, profile the people, companies that I admire, and shout out to the universe on what they're working on. And so I have been podcasting for over a decade. And so if someone has questions about podcasting, they're thinking about starting a podcast, you should. Bennie has a podcast, Quiet Time. You should check it out. He has some great episodes there. If you have questions, go to rise25.com or email me personally there. A shout out to Dan Cashel of Growth to Freedom. Bennie was also a guest on his podcast, and Dr. Rashir Sira of Resania, the Performance Enhancer podcast. Everyone should check out both of those. And, Bennie, it's funny when I observe you, and I've watched, dozens of videos of you talking and your thought leadership. You seem to be just a humble class act. Like that's how I define you as. And in case in point, I asked you for a bio. Okay. So I could read. This is what Bennie sent me. Okay. Bennie Fowler is a current NFL veteran of 8 years, Super Bowl champion, best-selling author of Silver Spoon, The Imperfect Guide to Success. He is also an executive coach. Okay. Bennie, that doesn't do justice, okay, at all to what you're about and what you have accomplished and what you do. My intro for you is Bennie began his career as an undrafted free agent signed by the Denver Broncos after graduating from Michigan State, which did you win one Rose Bowl, two Rose Bowls? What?
No, just one Rose Bowl, two Big Ten championships.
Oh, Big Ten championships. Okay, because I see the rings on your website. I got it. He won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos at Super Bowl 50. From that game, he was nobly remembered for catching the final pass of Hall of Famer Peyton Manning. He's played with Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. He's currently with the 49ers. And, he has spoken to organizations like Remax, YPO, EO, and helped some of those organizations too. So Bennie, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jeremy, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I don't like to toot my own horn. So but I do appreciate that intro, and it's great to be on your show.
Yeah, I mean that's what I get to toot your horn, right? But so I forgot one of my mentors, and I don't know who came up with this quote. Brian Kurtz says, "It's not bragging if it's true." I guess I don't know. So that's
I like that.
That's what he says. So it's all of that is just factual statements about you and your accomplishments. I was wondering where to start this interview off because there's so many directions we could take this, and I wanted to start off with, that you to paint the picture. What happened? Super Bowl 50. You are, that pass and you're in the huddle, you're everything, what's going on around you. So before that, because this kind of goes into the executive leadership, all that is built up with decades of you training for this moment. Right. And so walk me through what all the senses that are going through before you line up to catch this pass.
Yeah. It's just a little bit under 3 minutes to go, I would say, in the game. We just scored a touchdown, so we're up 12 points right now. Now we have a chance to go for 1 and kick a field goal and go up 13, or go for 2, go up 14, put the game completely out of reach. So we decide to go for 2. Peyton calls the play, and there's actually on NFL films him telling me in the huddle, like, "Hey, just give me some time. Just let me get the laces. I'm throwing it to you," because of the look. He said that to you. Yeah, because of the look we knew we were going to get down there. It was all man to man. So you can actually see in the play on the clip that he was supposed to actually motion Emmanuel Sanders down. Emmanuel Sanders is waving his hands so he can motion down. Peyton doesn't even motion him down. The ball's hiked. I take some steps toward the defender. I act like I'm going right, and I break left, and then I see the ball in the air, and it's as if an infant baby is being thrown towards me, and I sure as hell better catch this thing. So I catch this ball. I catch it. I cradle it. Hold on for your dear life. And, that's where my dreams, all the possibilities in my life became a reality. Like you said, all that dedication, those decades of work to come to that point all came true. But, that was one of the most surreal moments in my career. And my dad and my stepmom and my 2 sisters were actually sitting in that end zone, I think about 10 rows up. So it was awesome. I get up, I do my Billy White Shoes Johnson dance, which is an old school dance. I had my hands in the air. So it was just an incredible moment. It's like, I really caught a pass in the Super Bowl, and the only pass caught that day for points. And it ended up being the last pass and final pass of now Hall of Famer Peyton Manning.
I wonder if it's legal for me to clip that into the beginning of this interview. I don't know who owns that clip. Do you have that clip somewhere?
No, I don't.
No, you don't.
Okay. I probably have it on my phone.
I'm gonna have to find it.
Yeah, people use it.
I love it. I love that visualization as if an infant baby is hauled into the air. I can see.
Yeah, if a baby's being tossed to you, you make sure to catch it and cradle it. That's exactly how I caught that ball.
In your coaching practice too, you talk a lot about mindset. And in that moment when I didn't realize he had said to you, "Okay, I'm going to you on this."
Yeah.
What are you thinking there?
Don't mess this up.
There's a lot of pressure.
No.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure. Despite,
I don't think it's a lot of pressure. I think one of the things that I talk about when I'm working with executives and leaders is presence. And when you're playing with a guy like Peyton, who has such extreme poise and such extreme presence, I never felt the pressure when I was playing with him because he made the things easier. So if you're a CEO, if you're leading your company and you're a small business owner, or even a major C-suite, your employees are feeding off of your presence. And I was feeding off of Peyton's presence. He wasn't frantic. He didn't feel the pressure. So neither did I. And that's what
you sense his calmness a bit when in that moment, he wasn't like, "Benny, don't mess this up. I'm going to throw it to you." He was really calm and collected and had the poise. So that just basically kind of went to how you were too.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I talk to entrepreneurs about certain things, I mention poise. And when I mention poise, it's purpose, optimistic, intention, strategic, and effective. And that's what makes, those are 5 characteristics that make a great leader. And great leaders, we always talk about great athletes or great leaders in business. They always have this poise or this calmness where they don't seem to get rattled. And that's what Peyton, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Eli, that's what they all possess, is a certain amount of poise. They know why they're out there. They're optimistic. They see it. They have intention when they do things. They're strategic and they're effective. Yeah. They're consistent all the time. So poise is something that I talk about a lot with my executives.
So did you come up with that acronym? That's pretty good. I like that.
Yes, I did.
Yours. Okay.
Did.
I can see why you're friends with Dan Cashel, because like he could rattle off like acronyms like no one I've ever been with. So I like the poise one. That's a good one. Okay. That's maybe your next book.
Maybe, yeah. I was thinking
poise.
About, effective leadership.
Yeah. Poise. So despite saying that, I'm thinking of this and I'm sweating underneath this shirt, thinking about this moment. Okay. What else is going through your head?
Gratitude. The fact that I'm playing in the Super Bowl. Like, this is what all kids dream of. This is what I had dreamed of in the backyard. This is what I had dreamed of when I was going through injuries at Michigan State. Like to take this all in, like I'm playing in the Super Bowl, walking out of the stadium that day, walking onto the field, you're seeing the Beyoncés, the Jay-Z's, the Bruno Mars, these people are performing at halftime. You see all these incredible celebrities, Tom Cruise, all these people on the sidelines. It's just like, wow, like I'm really here. So it was just it's a gratitude moment that, first of all, as a second-year player, I'm on the field at the end of the game in the Super Bowl with a quarterback who's been playing for 18 years. And I probably had the least amount of experience in that huddle. I think I was the second-year player. Everybody else had to be a year, at least 6 or 7 years.
I'm glad the gratitude part was going through your mind and not that part. Like, wait, I'm the least experienced player. So it sounds like you were able to channel the energy of the poise around you, and that you focused on the gratitude piece, which I could see if you focus on that as opposed to, wait, I'm the least experienced in this huddle. Why? What are they doing?
No, I definitely wasn't thinking, what are they doing? But yeah, definitely the gratitude part. You have to be thankful. And then when you're being thankful, when you can't express gratitude and be fearful at the same time. So, definitely choose to express gratitude over fear.
Yeah. What's also amazing about that is you were undrafted. The moment that you were actually made the team, talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that was a long time coming, I would say, because, my first year in the NFL, I was on practice squad and really learning from Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Wes Welker, who's now my receivers coach in San Francisco. Learning from these incredible players. My second year going into training camp, I really put in the effort and time. I had moved out to LA that offseason and really put in a lot of work. I had to dedicate myself. I spent most of the money that I had earned from my practice squad year on my training going into that next year. So I didn't really give myself an option to fail. So the third game comes around, and the fourth game comes around. That's where the young guys are playing majority of the snaps. The veterans are getting ready for the season opener the following week. So I'm playing the entire game. I have to play this game to make the team. And I go out there and I have 7 catches for 75 yards, and all of that off-season work, the affirmations, the believing in myself, working on my self-confidence, working on my self-image, self-esteem had really paid off. And it was an incredible moment. I remember my receiver coach calling me and saying, "Hey man, sorry, we're going to have to," yeah, just kidding. And
that's a terrible thing to do to someone.
Yeah. I was like, I told him, man, don't play with me like that. Like I knew I did everything to make the team. So I wasn't really worried about that. But the fact that he did call me and mess with me like that was crazy. But Gary Kubiak called me, and it was just a dream come true, because as an undrafted player, it's hard to make the 53-man roster right out of the gate or right out of training camp. And I was fortunate enough to do that. And, that's a chip that I carry on my shoulder every single day. And that's why, going into my 8th year is because I understand what it takes to work, and I'm always going to outwork people.
One thing that strikes me, what you said, Benny, is spending your money on the training and the coaches, right? It's funny in the business world, in the sports world, we wouldn't think about not having coaches. I mean, there's a coach for the quarterback's coach, there's a wide receivers coach, there's a defensive coach, often, name it. Like there's a coach for everything. In the business world, it's so important to have mentors and coaches on various aspects. I'm wondering from you, what are the type of coaches that you've used? Could be like a health, nutrition, or mindset. Talk about some of the coaches that you have utilized over the years or now.
Yeah, I always have, I have a couple of different trainers. I have a guy that I work with usually on just receiver work in the off season. Then I have somebody that I work with in the weight room and conditioning. I have a couple of different massage therapists. I have a nutritionist for my food and supplements. And then I have a mindset coach and a peak performance coach. And I'm not working with those people every single day. They're different, maybe bi-weekly, maybe once a month, but we're performing at the top level. And in business, coaching and mentorship is extremely important. And, for me starting my business, especially while I'm playing, I've needed mentors like Dan and, my father, who was vice president of Ford for, 10 plus years. You need those mentors. You need those coaches. And it's not necessarily to tell you what to do, but it's how to help you perform. The receiver coach, a lot of the coaches in the NFL, I would say at least 50% of them have never played an NFL snap. So they're not there to tell you like, hey, you should do it this way, but hey, these are the standards. How are you performing? They're supposed to help you perform better. And that's why I wanted to get into executive and leadership coaching. And that's why I've seen dramatic results with the leaders that I've been working with. It's not to tell them what to do in their business. How can you do it better? Are you just hitting the standards? Are you just hitting goals that you can hit? What would it be like to have a breakthrough goal? What's it like to have that presence? What's it like to have all your employees put in extra hours without you having to tell them to do it? And I think that's important. Leadership, especially in the NFL, is the most unique leadership. And that's why I want to bring that to the business world, because it's 53 different businesses out there on a Sunday trying to win one game. Everybody has a different lifestyle. There are different salaries and different tiers of players. There are Hall of Fame players. There's undrafted players like myself, role players. There are starters. There are first-round picks, second-round picks. But how do we all come together to win this game on Sundays? And I've been a part of some great teams, and I've been a part of some bad teams. And it usually comes from the top down. And leadership is super important on all those teams, and not just coaches, not just owners and CEOs, but the players. How are the players on different teams? So if you're in a business, how are all the creatives? Are the creatives on the same floor as people like the analytical people? Are they getting into it? Usually you like to have the creatives on one floor. Like me being on offense, I don't expect to be in a defensive meeting. So you don't want your creatives in there with your analytical people. They just butt heads, or, there's not just as much energy. So those are certain things like that we go in and we assess and we look at how are the teams communicating? How is the leadership? Some teams, some leaders that I worked with don't necessarily always want to do a 360 feedback assessment, but that's the most important. The feedback, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. And that's one of the things that we use as a football term, is that the film doesn't lie. So the 360 feedback assessment won't lie. Your employees will be telling you how they perceive you and how they look at your leadership style. And then we can develop a plan from there. But I don't like to just develop a plan from what you think you need to work on.
Love it. I want to hear some of the lessons you've learned. You've had a lot of amazing colleagues, mentors. And I want to start with, since we were talking about Peyton Manning, there is a moment when you first were in the locker room, which kind of shows the leader that he is and was. Will you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So it was, my first day there in April, right after the draft. We go there. The bus picks us up from the Hyatt House Hotel here in Denver, and we're walking into the facility, and everybody's nervous. Everybody's got their headphones on. It's just like, man, like we're really in the NFL. But walking and you're just taking in the scenery and stopping by the calf, you meet the chefs, and then, go to the equipment room and you get fitted for your helmet, you get your jersey, shoulder pads. And then, you got your box and your cleats and you're walking to your locker. And then I see my locker and I'm putting some things away in my locker and acting like I'm a little busy. And then he walks in from the opposite side and there it is. It's Peyton. It's like, wow. He's 2 lockers from me, because I wore 16, he wore 18. He's 2 lockers from me. He has 2 lockers. He's got like his football stuff in one locker, and then he's got his khakis and polos and notebooks in the other locker. Like, only player in there with 2 lockers. And he comes up to me and says, "Hey man, welcome to the team. My name is Peyton." I'm just like, "What? Yeah, I know exactly who you are. You're the guy from the Nationwide commercials." And you're just kidding. But the fact that he came up to me that day, it showed a lot to me in terms of who he was as a person. Obviously, I knew who he was. Everybody knows who Peyton was, even if you really don't watch football, you just see him all over the place. So the fact that he came up to me and he treated me normal, and like he was normal, like, and then he made me feel a part of the team. Like, glad to have you here. Can't wait to work with you. Made me want to run through a wall for this guy. And it's because of that type of leadership, him being authentic, him being personable, him having that presence that I talked about earlier. I just think it's so important. And I think it's one of the reasons why, who knows, that I could have caught his last pass. Just maybe that little moment right there, and the extra work that I put in to learn his playbook, learn his signals, learn his codes, to understand him better so I could be in the right spot to catch passes from him. That was one of the most incredible moments, him coming up to me that day with his little khaki shorts on and his golf polo.
It makes it sets the tone for culture, when a leader like that comes in a humble way, right? And same thing in business, right? If there's a CEO executive that you're working with, doing the same thing. I mean, it's really translates across business also. There's another one, I know your dad is a big, mentor for you. There's a point where talk about your dad and then how Ben Wallace factors in to a lesson your dad taught you.
How Ben Wallace
Mm-hmm.
does?
Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? There was where he took you around, and I think he showed you Ben Wallace's house or something like that.
Oh yeah, and he said that you don't have to be an athlete to make $1 million. We live on the same street. Yeah. My dad has always laid the foundation, and he's definitely, I wouldn't say a mentor, but he's just an example of what I want to be as a man and who I want to be. And just, growing up in his house and being around him all the time, he just set the example to me, my brother, my sisters, on what the definition of hard work is. My dad used to take my brother and I to work when he was just a plant manager at Ford, take us to work on Saturdays, just for a couple hours. And, we drive around the plant and seeing the cars actually being made on the assembly line at Ford Motor Company. And then to see him rise to the vice president of Ford, CEO of Jaguar and Land Rover, to see that evolution of business, especially as a Black man in this world, was incredible. But yeah, he did put us in, we got into the car and then drove around the corner, and we saw Ben out there, who is also a mentor of mine in terms of sports, who actually just talked to yesterday. We rode by his house, and he wanted to stress the importance of education, and that you don't have to be an athlete to make $1 million, and that you don't have to be an athlete to live like that. And I think that holds true to this day. Some of the most wealthy people that I know are not athletes. So that's a lesson for the kids, especially who pick up my book. And for the kids in college, yes, making it to the pros. Yes, that's something you want to do. But if you have other dreams, other aspirations, especially if you're going after money, and, money does bring a lot of things, especially like freedom, that you don't have to just go and do it through sports. Sports is just another vehicle and a tool to do that. But there are so many different ways, and being an entrepreneur, working at a different company, getting your education for whatever school you go to Michigan State. But,
yeah, exactly.
I think there's so many different ways that you can earn a living.
what was, he showed you that and kind of taught you that lesson. Your dream as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
right, was
I would say not even a kid. That still is my dream.
to be in the NBA.
Yes. Still is my dream. I wear NBA socks in every NFL game I've ever played in. Every NFL practice I've ever practiced in, NBA socks. I wanted to be like Kobe Bryant. I wanted to be like the late great Kobe Bryant. He was my favorite athlete, and just the way he went about things, his charisma, his mindset. I just love the fact that he would shoot the ball with 2 people, 3 people on him, but he had no fear of anything. And that's what it seemed like. And that's something that I've always admired about a Kobe Bryant. And, I had all his shoes from Adidas to the Nike shoes. Kobe Bryant is one of the reasons why I wanted to be an NBA basketball player.
Mm. Yeah. I want to talk about, that dream at some point. It never went away, but you also then had another dream, right? Which is football. But who was a favorite Detroit basketball player that you looked up to or liked?
Ben, I was always around Ben Wallace. I was always around Sheed, Rip, and Chauncey. But, Joe Dumars is, I was really great friends with his son, great friends with his son, Jordan. So I was always in the Dumars household, who was a bad boy in the bad boy eras and played against Mike. And to watch him go about his business as an executive for the Pistons, but also didn't get to see the highlights, but didn't get to see who he was as a man was awesome. And being in Jody's house and seeing the way that, professional athletes live, that's where I got the real taste of what professional athletes got to live like, see what their life was like. He brought the Pistons around us, and I got a chance to be around those guys, especially at an impressionable age, such as high school. They was such an awesome thing to see. So, being in his household was also great at the same time in high school.
Is he still with the Pistons?
Jody?
Yeah.
No, he's with Sacramento.
Oh, Sacramento. Okay.
So he does. Yeah, he's in the front office in Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, me being from Chicago, there were many years where there was a big, we couldn't beat the Pistons for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Joe D was on those teams.
He was.
Yeah.
The Last Dance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So football. What I find interesting about your story too, Benny, is that Benny was probably playing football and he never stopped playing football. He was playing from when he was a kid all the way up, but you didn't play until junior year.
I played 2 years. I played Little League.
Well, you played Little League, but you didn't play in high school. You didn't play until junior year, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, I was all focused on basketball. I was doing some track. That was my second sport. So you're required to play 2 sports at our high school. And I was doing basketball and I was doing track. And football wasn't even crossing my mind.
What changed junior year?
I had some friends, Jonas Gray, Kenny Dimmons, 2 highly recruited, the most highly recruited probably football athletes in probably our school's history. Jonas went to Notre Dame and played running back. Kenny Dimmons was a 5-star linebacker that played at the University of Michigan. So those 2 guys, we had some good talent. They're like, man, come out for the team. Come out for the team. We can use your speed. Don't worry about
They saw what you were doing on the track field in the basketball court, and they wanted you to play.
Yeah, they wanted me to play, but they couldn't convince me. So I told my mom one day, and my mom was like, yeah, you should go out there and play. And I was like, what? And I was like, how many moms are out there encouraging their sons to go out and play a game where their son gets hit? And I mean, hit hard. But, sometimes in life, that's what happens. People give you a different perspective. And my mom gave me a different perspective, but she had the confidence in me, which ultimately led to me having confidence on the field. And I went out there my junior year and played a little bit. Then I broke my collarbone and I was super upset with my mom. I was like, this is why I didn't want to play. This is exactly why I didn't want to play. 6 weeks after that, it heals up. Semifinal game, we run a hook and ladder play, and I scored the game-winning touchdown to go to the state championship. And that led to some colleges coming after me. And then I went to some college camps, and then I got scholarships to, Eastern Michigan was the first scholarship offer I got after the Oakland County track meet. I ran a sub 1,100 meters, and they offered me. Then I went to Toledo, their camp, and got an offer. Then I got an offer from Michigan State, then Indiana. And then it was like, okay, like I can really go to college for this. I'm going to college for free. Went up to the University of Michigan to visit, and didn't really like it, didn't drive well, committed to Michigan State the next day.
Were you worried about your basketball career? Is that why one of the reasons you didn't want to go play football? Getting injured for basketball?
I wasn't worried about that and
No.
getting injured. It was just that I wanted to pour my time into basketball.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of my friends were doing. A lot of my friends, even my brother, he was a basketball player. So it was just like, that's what I want to do. And then when you're done, your favorite athlete's playing basketball, that's what you want to do too. I wasn't really watching football games like that. I mean, my dad would take us to Lions games, but I wasn't really paying attention to the players, so to speak.
And lessons from your brother, because your brother had some early on injuries he had to overcome.
Yeah, my brother is one of the most incredible humans I've ever come across. That's the reason why I dedicated my book to him. My brother's my hero. He tore his ACL when he was 11 years old for the first time. And it's almost impossible to tear your ACL when you're 11 years old, but, a freak accident like that. But, he really taught me about
what happened.
Just football practice.
Oh, it was football.
Tackled.
He got injured in football.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Just got tackled the wrong way. It's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to stop playing
really?
too.
Yeah, exactly.
But, he just got tackled the wrong way. But he taught me about perseverance, going through adversity, never giving up. And to see him go through those injuries at such a young age and to fight back and to tear his ACL 2 more times after that. And still earn a scholarship to Central Michigan, become a 3-time captain, lead them to a MAC championship, and then also go to play overseas is just one of the most incredible things that I've gotten to witness, as we've grown together. And now he's going to be, leading young men as he is as a coach at Northern Arizona University right now in Flagstaff. He's just one of the most incredible people. And he just never gave up his mindset. He helped me develop my mindset in terms of being stronger, in terms of putting in the work, because I've always had a natural talent and a natural ability about him. He's had to work and overcome so many different things. He really taught me the importance of working with detail, working with intent, working with focus.
Why'd you call it Silver Spoon?
Because I'm from the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. And I grew up in Bloomfield Hills. I grew up in a great home. I had great family around me. And then, on podcasts, like you said, we talk about a lot of failures in athletes on ESPN, ABC, whatever these athletes, wherever these sporting events are. It's always a crazy story about somebody coming from poverty to achieve this height in their sport. Well, I didn't come from poverty, but I still had to work, and I still had to earn the scholarship. I still went undrafted. Like, none of that mattered. I still had to put in the countless amount of hours. Like, it's still the 1%, but that story never gets told. So silver spoon, people think that everything is given to you just because of kind of the way you grew up, or if you grow up with, your parents in your life, or if you grow up with, in a nice home, that everything's given to you. And that's not the way I grew up at all. And I want people to understand that. And that's why I put different people in throughout my book who have different stories, who didn't grow up like me, but have the same principles as me in terms of working hard, discipline, goal setting, handling adversity, handling success, being yourself, surrounding yourself with the right people. So that's why I call it Silver Spoon.
Yeah. And I know another colleague, friend, mentor, I love to hear a lesson from Draymond Green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What have you learned from him?
I learned so much from Draymond in terms of being authentic, number one. I mean, he's always going to speak his mind, but when he's talking, he knows exactly what he's talking about. He's researching. He's doing the research. So him being authentic, but just his work ethic. He's a great friend. He's somebody that you need in terms of telling the truth. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. And if you're looking for, things to be sugarcoated or things to be looked over, passed over, well, then that's not the friend that you want to bring around. And sometimes, oh man, like Draymond's going to bring this up, and you kind of you need that friend. That's what good friendship is all about.
Right.
It's about being there and supporting, but also you said this is your goal, so I'm going to hold you accountable to your goal.
How did you meet?
We met playing AAU, so we met playing for the family, but we also met through Jordan Dumars, who the son of Joe Dumars. We met through him, and then we all played on the same AAU basketball travel team. And then Draymond and I both went up to Michigan State, and that's when we really became really, really good friends and really close. And we've been friends and close ever since.
Do you still practice basketball wise?
Oh yeah, I still go shoot around. Oh yeah, I'm always gonna love the sport, but being around him, being around my brother, especially when I'm always around my brother, we'll always shoot around. If I can go to the gym at Northern Arizona, like, hey man, let's go to the gym. I want to go get some shots up, or I want to go shoot the ball a little bit. He's like, man, let that go. I'm like, I'll never let it go. So no, my brother and I always go to the gym, and we're always playing.
You've played with some amazing quarterbacks. Obviously, you mentioned Peyton Manning. I love to hear a few lessons from, because you played with Tom Brady, Eli Manning, and Drew Brees. And what was really interesting too is that Drew Brees, when the Saints were looking at you, vouched for you. What did he say about you?
He just knew the way I went about the game. He knew my work ethic. You don't get to my position in the NFL, especially as an undrafted guy, without doing the dirty work and doing things the right way all the time. So that's what he saw. So he came out here during the pandemic last year to work out with Emmanuel Sanders. They had just signed Emmanuel Sanders, who was a teammate of mine for 4 years in Denver. So he came out here to work out with Emmanuel. Emmanuel was like, hey, just, we need an extra body just to catch some extra balls. I don't want to just be running out here by myself. So I was like, okay, I'll come by. And it's like, I'll get a chance to catch Drew. And I was like, if I impress Drew, he'll easily call. He has enough pull to call, the coaches and the staff. So we get about 3 routes in, and Drew's like, man, who are you with right now? It's like, I'm a free agent because everything's kind of shut down because the world is shut down. And he's like, oh, I'm going to call Mickey and Sean right after this. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. And then he really did. And, my agent called me. He's like, man, Drew, whatever you did, whatever you impressed Drew with in terms of your route running, you did it. Like, they want to bring you in. At first they were going to, work me out and see, but then they just kind of signed me based off of Drew Brees and what he said. And I think that just is a testament to me always being ready.
Yeah.
And, I really appreciated that. It's just, you never know who's watching. My mom always says that you never know who's watching. And that was an opportunity. I could have easily said, nah, I don't want to go out there. It's a pandemic right now, but when opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare.
Yeah. Some random, opportunity, you just seize it. What did he see, Benny, in the route running in that short period of time? What was he seeing that he's like, oh wow, I gotta make a call?
I would say the crispness of the routes, just meeting him and maybe me being a bigger guy, getting in and out of my breaks, I would say. But then also the way I talk about the game. And, I can still recall some of the plays and concepts of Peyton. And he had mentioned a couple of concepts, that that he learned from Peyton and things like that. And I could still put the names to him and, hey, the hot's off this. And then he was like, oh, you're on it.
He's a student of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so he could see that I, conceptually understand what needs to go on, what needs to take place within a play on an offense, how to be a pro. That's one of the things, even when I got signed with San Francisco this year, they said, you're a guy that we would never have to worry about. You just, how to be a pro. And they, you have to come in here and set an example. And I think that my name carries weight in the NFL in terms of doing that, especially being undrafted. Like, I'm always going to harp on that because undrafted players don't make it to 8 years. I mean, you have your unicorns like a Wes Welker or Rod Smith who play, 12, 14 years, but there's something I have to be doing right all the time to play this long.
Yeah, there's something to be said about having people in an organization and in the locker room, just like true teammates that are going to set an example, mentor, show, lead by example, and having those people. We've all been on teams that have those people that it's like there's this, this just unsaid leadership about just doing what needs to be done. Right. So yeah, what did you learn? Are there any other lessons, from Drew Brees, just from being teammates?
I would say his preparation is second to none. His preparation is some of the most incredible work that I've ever seen. Even on a Saturday before the game, we're playing on Sunday, he will start at the 1 yard line in the indoor facility when everybody leaves, and he will go through to every down 100 yards. In terms of every yard, he'll do a new play and just go through the motions of the play and see where everybody's supposed to be and visualize each play and completing each pass. I mean, it's just, and I think that's just incredible. And the way he went about his work, and just, he was on point. He was always trying to be on point. He wanted to be perfect in every practice, every throw. And that's why he's the most accurate quarterback of all time.
What about Tom Brady? What did you see lessons? Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a fierce competitor. Even one-on-ones, he wants to compete in anything and everything. And I was only there for a short time, only 1 week, because they traded for somebody else, and then that's when I signed with New York. But what I saw in that week showed me exactly who he was for the last 19, 20 years. A competitor, taking care of his body and his attention to detail.
What about Eli Manning?
Because
you play with Peyton, right? And
yeah.
Now you're playing with Eli.
Yeah, Eli set the example. Eli set an example, but he also showed the importance of teammates and camaraderie. He was one of those guys, just like Peyton, like I mentioned about Peyton. He treated everybody the same. And, you would see he had lunch with everybody. And, Eli's one of the most incredible storytellers, but he's an incredible worker. I mean, he works incredibly hard. I mean, he's staying after practice and he's helping nurture guys. And he nurtured Daniel Jones in my last year in New York. But, I give him a lot of credit even for a lot of success that Odell Beckham had early in his career. Odell's first 500 catches in the league all came from Eli. So that's a testament to quarterback and receiver play.
I want to talk, Benny, about your methodology. When you go into an organization, and talk about where you start and some of the things that you do with an organization, how you assess and kind of set goals with them.
Yeah, if I'm working with leaders, it starts with a 360 assessment. And I want to talk to 10 of the 12 closest people. And even if you have enough strength, then I would love to ask your spouse as well and add your spouse.
If you have enough 360.
Yes. If you have enough strength mentally to handle it, ask your spouse also for their.
First of all, I love the approach on that, Benny, because if you ask whatever, let's say high-powered CEO, if you say, do you have the strength? What are they going to say? Of course I do. So that's such a great way of framing it to someone, right?
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. So definitely do a 360 assessment. Yeah. And if we're working on leadership and we're working on presence or productivity, there's certain things, not everything is all the same. So everything is a tailor-made approach. If I'm working with teams, what do we want to work on? Communication and, effectiveness, goals in terms of sales, marketing, operations. There's so many different things, but I like to get an assessment. I always start with an assessment. I started how I would start, my off-season program going into a season. Okay, what do I need to get better at? What do I think I need to get better at? And then what are the numbers and data telling me? and then we come up and construct a plan from there, and then we go from there. And then it's coaching, it's setting up relationships to help to get better. I would say it's a different approach. I can't really say that it's a, hey, this is how we're following it, but it's always going to start with that assessment. You have to.
The assessment will lead wherever it goes, and that will probably point to things like you said. If you just ask the person, that's different from asking the people in the organization, because the person may say one thing and then there's other people are going to say other things, right? So if it's just working with one person, we can go through like the GPS method, which is my online course that I created, which is goal setting plus purpose equals your success. But that's just like a baseline thing. And then you have the Poise model, where we can come up with where's your purpose, where's the mindset, where's the intention, how do we become strategic, how do we become effective. I think there's other things within my organization and what I do and how I kind of work with people. But I have all the leadership tools, team tools to be successful, and actually gone to Coactive and also done some leadership development and training. So it's not like I'm just using football terminology. I'm actually certified in all of this work. Yeah. Who are ideal people to work with you, companies or clients?
I would say I love working with emerging leaders. I love working with C-suites. I think there's always a room to get better. The biggest room in the world is room for improvement. So like I said, I don't want to just come into an organization and say, hey, this is the method, you need to adopt this. Or, hey, I don't want to just come in there and give a motivational talk and tell stories. I want to implement things, and implementation takes time. So I like to challenge people, like, okay, for the next month, like what is communication? What does great communication look like in this next month? And how do we know that's being performed? What is increasing? What does doubling our sales look like? Okay, hey, we want to hit this sales number. Now, is that just a sales number that you want to hit because that'll make you feel good? But what's a stretch goal to make everybody want to come to work? Or how do you have better talent retention? How do you keep your employees engaged? Because employees are just leaving work, or everybody wants to be an entrepreneur now. So how do you keep your employees engaged? I think there's so many different things in terms of where this could go.
Yeah. Benny, last question. First of all, thank you. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, your stories. And before I ask, where should we point people towards online to find out more? To LinkedIn? Okay.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a profile that I'm always active on, and I share a lot of content. I do my Monday Mindset Minute with Benny. I do that, and then I share some articles on LinkedIn as well in terms of the things that I've learned on the field that can be applied in business. And I think that's where I see and engage with a lot of business owners. And I'm working with about 14 people right now, right before the season. So
you have a limited time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we'll pretty much come to a close with that in July. But I still engage with people throughout the day or throughout the week on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I want to encourage people to check out Bennie Fowler on LinkedIn. It's BennieFowler. Also check out Silver Spoon, his book, The Imperfect Guide to Success. Bennie, my last question is mentors that we did not mention. It could be mentors in your life over the past couple of years. It could be distant mentors. It could be distant mentors, meaning like books that you just love from people that you respect. Who are some of the mentors or books that we weren't able to mention so far?
One of my favorite books of all time, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, Think and Grow Rich, Success, The Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. I think growth mindset is super important. Abraham Maslow is I would say a mentor that obviously, he's not here anymore, but, I've read a lot of his books. I've had so many different mentors in terms of in business and life. Dan, shout out to Dan. He's a business mentor now. My dad, one of the most incredible mentors anybody could ever have. Julius Thomas, who's in my book, Draymond, who's in my book, my mother, who is, my best friend and mentors me in so many different areas of life. So, those are the people that I would, shout out and Demarius Thomas, Manuel Sanders, so many great people. So those
Love
are
it.
the people I would love to shout out. And then all the coaches that have helped me to this point.
Yeah. First of all, Benny, thank you. Everyone check out Silver Spoon and Benny on LinkedIn, Inspired Insider, Rise 25. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Benny.
Jeremy, thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.